trying. There we go. Hello, everybody, and welcome to the AI Revolution call. I'm Cody Willard. That's Bryce Smith. He works at 10,000 Days Hedge Fund with me and at Trading with Cody with me, frankly. And my man, John Dio, AI Revolution expert extraordinaire, who has been working in the AI industry for 27 years. Is that what we decided?
I don't know. I'm going with aficionado now. So
there you go.
AI aficionado.
Cigar aficionado, nay. The AI aficionado. So, what are we talking about here? I think we've got lots of AI news as usual. John, what do you want to start with?
You guys can tell me the news stuff. I'll remember it when you say it for some of it. But I have I learned more this week, I think, about what's being discussed as how you might define AGI. You know, what will it mean for the computer to actually be smart enough to hit that next stage that people talk about? Because that gets like, the term AGI gets batted around a lot, artificial general intelligence, and having the intelligence of a human kind of thing. But that's one thing, is I was learning some about that research.
Who was it Jensen Huang saying the other day that they're less concerned about defining AGI, or was that the Anthropic guy?
That was Anthropic.
Yeah.
Well, he may be less concerned about defining it, but the stuff he's talking about us achieving in the next couple of years is insane. So,
right,
John. So it seems like there's sort of a developing debate about whether the LLM pathway that we're currently on is even possible to create, if it could possibly even create AGI, general intelligence. And the pathway from here to Tesla actually having an Optimus robot that was trained on machine learning with the same chips that created ChatGPT. Are we going to get there? Does the trend make sense to you?
I don't know if, and have doubts about whether LLM architecture by itself does it, but I'm more confident after looking at the things that are going on, that one, it continues to play a key part, and two, that they will, if it's not the LLM and it's something else, they'll incorporate it, move toward it, and no one will care. It's like they're not in the LLM business, they're in the AI business.
So when you say they, you mean who?
OpenAI, all of them. I mean, they're all about LLMs right now. So like, it was the latest thing from OpenAI already takes a turn where, instead of it being like input output, like, what do you here, give me the prompt, what are you asking for, I'll go work it through, I'll give you the answer. It now kind of bats it around internally a bunch and goes through different steps, and it's like, let's think about it this way, think about it that way, do this with it, do that. And that those steps are distinct per problem type. So they got lots of different, they call it chain of thought, but they've got lots of different chains, lots of different, it's almost like algorithms, but steps to take the thing through. So there's already that change, and that change is important because it has room to get smarter and smarter with what are those steps and what should we change about those steps. And it doesn't require the same kind of spend 6 months building the next model in order to, the changes happen as it goes.
So let's just back up for a little bit and give a little bit of color on just the idea that large language models like ChatGPT and Google Gemini and Meta Llama, for the most part, are
Anthropic Claude,
Anthropic Claude, all of them are They use vectors to basically decide what is the most likely word or thought process that should follow what has come so far in that chain of thought, sort of like I'm doing right now, trying to get this sentence out. And sometimes it's better at that than a human being is. But, and so that's where, like, when you just sort of look at that, hey, it knows that after you say the king, that you're probably talking about a human being, but maybe not. And it'll continue to take whatever words it's looking at to further refine the vector that it's going towards in deciding what word it puts next. And if you're going to ask it to write a story about Carrizozo, New Mexico, that's what makes the English in that story proper grammar, and it makes the story functional and the plot sort of develop, and it can sort of get there. But beyond structuring sentences well, it is already being used in the way that Tesla is using it. It is already being used to create videos and images and to look at pictures and interpret what it's seeing. And I've got those
it's a distinct kind of
glasses. I don't know where I put them. They must still be in my truck.
It's not LLM at that point. It's a distinct kind of.
Well, then, can you talk about where does it differentiate? When does it no longer an LLM, and when is it something else? And is it still using vectors to sort of decide what the most likely probability is when it makes an image or something?
Yeah, it's so I'm gonna hit the ignorance wall pretty quick, but this other kind of AI, it uses diffusion. So think of it as like, when your TV, no, it doesn't do this anymore, but it used to kind of have snow, just like total random black and white and gray dots all over the place.
I was always cheering for the black dots, not the white ones.
Yeah. Okay. I was just wanting to make them make a pattern like Poltergeist, but this is the thing is it's like there's a pattern in there. So what they do is they take let's say with images, they take images and they will like noisify them, like make them blurrier and blurrier, and with each pass, they're keeping track of what kind of steps they took to make the thing turn into total noise. Then they did that 1 billion times with different things, whether it was, a cat jumping on a ball of yarn or a dog, like a person skiing down a hill or a dog running or whatever. So like you have all these individual different things, whether we're talking, video or just start with just images. And by keeping track of all of the noising that it does, it then can denoise, can go and work backwards from complete randomness and say, well, what if this were a picture of, a cat sitting in a living room chair? What would that mean for this pixel over here? And as it's going through it, some of it's still looking pretty random and stuff, but things start to look like something. It's basically walking its way toward, and nowadays what you can get is like complete photorealism. It can get all the way to, but it's kind of imagining what the picture could be, but doing a kind of mathematical imagining.
And when it does software, when it writes code in whatever language you're asking it to do it,
that is a language.
To do code in Python.
Yeah.
How is it? Is it still vectorizing, or is it closer to the image description?
No, it's closer to the language model one. I mean, it's like Python is just like English. It's it's saying, the same way it would say, what's the next word? It says, what's the next line of code? Actually, what's the next, statement? What's the next token? What's the next individual thing that would make it up? And it's using, all the Python there ever was, and then going and using that to just, kind of statistically get at what's most likely here. But when you talk about most likely, it's easy to kind of get the point across. There was a concept when we were kids in school called close with a Z, which was, I remember my father was teaching reading, and this is the thing you'd have. You go, the cat sat on the blank, you know, and you wanted something that rhymes, and oh, Matt, you know, and so that blank is just like what we're saying here of, you know, the predictiveness of what comes next. But when that predictiveness starts being a Shakespeare sonnet, you know, in Gaelic with this and that, and like every random thing you could apply, it still is coming down to it being the next thing. But that next thing just has, you know, a ton behind it to have it go in the right direction. Now with code, it's like if it had all this information up front about description about what the code should do and so forth, it's like, well, you know, they said blah 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 print, so it's most likely that the, you know, print statement's going to be there. But everywhere we find a print statement before something happens with it, it's most likely that the variable's being set, so that's going to come before that. So, you know, until it gets down to, well, the next thing should be this, you know.
All right, and then when it does math, it struggles with math to this day, but it does it pretty well, you know, like a college age student most of the time when I work on it or something, but it still can hallucinate some random stuff that doesn't actually work. Can you walk us through how does the current iteration of AI do math?
Well, actually, Model 01, the latest thing from OpenAI, it does better at math than almost any person. It's like up there in the top 100 now or something. It's incredibly good, which is crazy. But it is on the language side of things. It's on the completion side of things. And when it was doing it before 01 came out, when it's like GPT-4, stuff like that, you know, it did better when it would somehow be forced to think the problem through, so that it would kind of make it like a word problem, walk through what has to come next. Oh, to figure this out, I would first figure this, and so forth. And kind of the discussing of it, which matches up with enough stuff out there, kind of heads it in the direction of like, quote, thinking, but it's really just heading it in the direction of getting the right patterns out, so that by the time it gets down toward the answer, the stuff above it has, you know, set it up well for it.
Interesting. How much is human reinforcement? What's the acronym I'm missing?
RLHF, the reinforcement learning through human feedback. So that's big.
Let me give you the question first. How much is that important? How much is human interfacing with it and helping it learn and reinforcing what it's learning today versus 18 months ago? Is it still just as integral, or as the machines are learning, do they start reinforcing themselves ever more? And even if it's the amount of AI that's happening every day has grown 2 orders of magnitude or something over the last 2 years.
Yeah.
But I don't think human reinforcement learning has grown 2 orders of magnitude. There might be more overall today, but as a percentage of AI, how much is it decreasingly important?
So up until a month ago, I would say, no, it's increasingly important. And now in the past month with the new models, I would say that, and it's just my understanding right now from, you know, trying to keep up, but that if you think of it as these going through these multiple steps, where it's first make the pre-trained model, then do the reinforcement learning, those steps are still there, but now the emphasis is toward the reinforcement learning that happens in that last piece of the loop, which is that chain of thought, you know, it going through it, doing better because of the inference that it does at the end. That stuff is not human in the loop. That's what's exciting, is the more they can get human out of the loop for what's needed going forward, the more that it can start to
exponentially, it'll exponentially increase its learning and its
and I believe I think we're within some, you know, reasonable, I'd say 2 years, we're within some reasonable range of that, of making that switch. And when we do, you know, God help us.
So when all that happens, we go from somewhere in the next, say, 3 to 5 years. Let's give it a long time horizon, I think, by AI standards. 3 to 5 years from now, are AI programs designing AI chips that will go into the data centers that will enable the next version of AI software to be developed with machine learning by AI chips designed by AI computers running software code that was created by AI and implemented into the system by AI, and human beings in the data center AI part of this equation are irrelevant, de minimis at most.
Yeah, I think it's not a flip of the switch thing. It's and it's also not a people sitting in this one place deciding all this kind of thing. At each different piece of the value chain, whether it's going and making the chips, whether it's going and making the models, they are the people who work with this stuff, and they're good to do it. They're it's their environment to be in. Is they are more and more making use of AI on these different points, and more getting themselves out of the loop. So at what point it gets enough out of the loop is a question, but they're that's the direction.
So does everybody become an investor in the end? Because we don't need Hollywood directors and content creators. You don't need programmers. You don't need chip designers. You don't need manual laborers. You don't need anything but people deciding, human beings making decisions about what would be the best place to risk capital for best rewards long term, and or doing trading. I mean, what else do people do for a living, John?
Well, couple things. I think one is we don't see the computer having an aesthetic sense yet to where it can make really good stuff and it can make crap and it doesn't know which one's better.
Okay, so you got interior designers, they'll keep their jobs, but everybody else is screwed.
Everything you said about directors or content creators, it's like if somebody's being creative, then the AI is enhancing what they do, but not eliminating them. But that's tricky, because if that means enhancing, it could mean that where it took 10 people before, it takes one. So it is eliminating a ton of, jobs.
I mean, I guess what I'm picturing those, it's almost like a meta AI version. And I don't mean the company, I mean the concept of meta, where it's like, hey, AI, come up with great ideas in great aesthetics, ranging from noir to fantasy, and make 52-hour movies in the style, in each of those genre, in the style of the most popular directors that you think would succeed with this. Not what, like, and you just, but I guess what it's almost like, that was too much detail in what I just said. It's like at some point you can even just tell it to make the content that's going to work. You're going to tell it to make the chips that are going to work. What, like, and then it's almost like you're just like, hey, tell yourself to keep making that stuff.
I don't know if we can say right now how good it's going to be at, like I said, knowing what's good. Or also that all of this is, I'm going to say, going to sneak up on us, but it's not going to be instantly there. It's going to, we will have between now and then to continue to ask the question, what do I do now? That's all on that one side of it. The other side I was going to say is either, is like we can turn to the AI to say, hey, all of what you're good at, what would you like help with? How can I play a role here? And I've talked before about an interest in like the Optimus robots when they were walking around among the people. It's fine that they were teleoperated because that's the stage they're at. And it's going to take a lot to go and get the kind of sufficient data in them to get up to the level like the cars have, with understanding what's going on in the world and how to react to it and everything. So like we're a long way off from those things just being straight up smart, commonsensical smart, walking among us and just doing things. And it could be that one of the main jobs for us is to help it get there.
John has a job for the next 30 years. The rest of us are screwed, Bryce.
No, it's in him. It's
Bryce,
in
come on in here and contribute.
it's
Yeah,
in
I don't
English.
think that happens. I don't think you're going to get to where everybody just does nothing and AI does everything. I don't think history shows us that that never happens with technology. So,
Well, because there's always more to do. But the question is, do you like identifying what that more is?
but we figured out. I mean,
Yeah, so I said,
when tractors came around, they didn't know what other people were going to do that had been farming, but pretty soon people figured out to build cool things like computers that they couldn't have even conceived of in the 1800s, you know?
yes.
Yeah, but I guess the farming's a good analogy because it actually does sort of reinforce the point I'm making. It used to require 2 orders of magnitude more people to create 2 orders of magnitude less food. 200, 300 years ago, millions of people in the United States alone worked in farming, and they produced a small fraction of what we produce today with hundreds of thousands of people working in farming. And
But-
so that actually does sort of reinforce the point. At some point, if AI gets far enough along, won't they just be like, hey, AI, farm, get as much produce and as much yield out of that land as you possibly can using all of the insights that you've gleaned over the last 20 years of AI. Maybe we're talking 20 years in the future. Fine, whatever. That's a long time away, but not really.
Well, but you gotta draw the line somewhere. If you want to say 20 years, 50 years, these kinds of things, it's like, oh no, it's going to hit a point at which this and that. And it's like, well, okay, but we have a long time between here and there, and we're going to have to keep thinking and problem solving on the way there. And as we do, the world will change in such a way that will expose for us what are the additional things to go and do. Like with food, we have incredible productivity in creating food now, but we got quantity, not quality. And we've mixed in a bunch of chemicals and things as a way of getting it done quickly, as a way of making the food last longer. And then we find that it's killing us and so forth. And so the AI can help us do, like, there are robots now that will, kill weeds very individually, like, 50 weeds per second or something as this thing moves down the row. And then it's using far less, like drenching it in chemicals to do it. So there's a lot of room for it to go make improvements. But if you're going to make the argument that, but if it's going to keep getting better and better, there'll be nothing for us to do. It's like, okay, fine.
I'm not even saying, I don't mean to make it sound like I'm saying that's a bad thing, because I'll check my premise on that being a bad thing, but I am just sort of, we talk a lot about whether AI is going to generate returns for the tens of billions of dollars that are being invested in building the data centers that are running this current iteration of AI. And that's all fine and dandy. But then and we also talk about how like Optimus Robot could replace millions of laborers. And we talk about how software coding could replace millions of coders and software engineers. And I guess I just sort of like, in my mind, I take that to an extreme. And I try to picture, fine, 20, 30 years out. Fine, John, it's a long time away. And yeah, maybe we'll figure out how everybody just gets universal income and we all are living in utopia somehow or something. But
yeah, that sounds bad.
It's unlikely because, human beings always have to compete and they'll figure out ways to measure their own wealth differently and whatever.
Right, but you can't solve it all up front like you're trying to do. It's like, yeah, maybe that is what goes on, but like, maybe what we should be solving for now is more about, what process we should use from now to continue to learn where we fit in, learn what has to happen, that kind of stuff, versus what are we going to do?
When you say we, you mean the United States, the people of the world, governments of the world? Who's making these decisions? I don't want the Republican Democrat regime making any decisions about what AI should be.
Everybody makes decisions. I meant everybody, and that could be people, organizations, whatever. But all the things and
the
people,
UN.
all the things and people who make decisions now are going to continue to. But the more you can get people on the right track about what is happening. And I mean, Bryce, I share your, I guess, optimism and way of looking at it to go. Who knows? We're going to figure out what that stuff is for us to do. We always do.
I don't think it's realistic to think that AI is just going to do everything like some kind of magic thing.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's.
Let's use the farming example, Bryce. Do you not think at some point in the next few decades, at worst,
on which farm? Whose farm does AI farm?
right?
Somebody owns all the land.
Right,
AI
that's fine.
Go buy the land.
Let me ask the question.
Buy fertilizer.
That your friends who own millions of acres and produce onions and spinach and wheat and whatever, hay and all the other things they farm, they use technology all the time to get better yields out of it.
Right.
AI over time in 20 or 30 years will have those inputs and will understand what they've been doing to get better yields over many years of measurement. And at some point, just like AI can design the chips, AI could design the methods, the systems by which that land is farmed, and that you can use robots or it can use robots to make the robots that will actually do the farming. And so it just going to an extreme. Again, I'm not trying to be like this is terrible or something. I'm just saying that it actually would be a wonderful thing, because there will be so much more abundance of food on the planet, and maybe AI will even figure out how to get it distributed to the billions of people who need it right now.
So just one thing is, Bryce, like you can answer it, but I want to think in terms of that. It's not. Don't think of it as there's some new central planning committee that makes all this stuff happen. Think of it as we still have capitalism until we don't, but let's say we do. We still have a market, an economy. We have the demand pulling these technologies into the small farm, the large farm, to the extent they can afford to do so, to the extent it makes sense for them. And that think of it still happening that way, just so that we're not mixing in some, new.
Yeah, I'm not saying the government controls it all. I'm saying the guy who owns that farm could implement better and better AI technology that eventually actually just does it all.
I mean, but I guess I was with you. I was going to agree with you until you said it does it all. That's where I lose you.
Why wouldn't you just tell the AI, look, design the robots?
Your example was AI farm.
Yeah.
Enter, and then it does it. There's no way.
No, Bryce, you tell the AI, hey, design the robots that will do the best job of whatever it is that you think we should be doing, because you've seen the way that we increase yield measured with data for decades. And so eventually it gets to the point where the AI will make the most logical decisions about how to actually even create a system of farming. And yes, the farmer has to then buy that system and implement it. But why would the farmer even be involved if AI in 20 or 30 years can do everything from designing the robots to designing the patterns to designing the yields to designing what the dates, knowing what weather patterns are, all of it, and take it all into account and do better than a human being can?
Think of it as a system, as Cody was saying, that develops over time and that gradually has more automation, has more of the decision making happening automatically by the AI, whatever that means, right? So you're starting out with, okay, we have seasons, we have things we do, we have planting, we have caring for while it's there, and then harvesting. More and more it's knowing what each of those things is, why each of them matters, how weather decisions affect what decisions go on, and it's basically over time playing a more and more responsible role, like it's given more responsibility within that system. So eventually, like, you're taking the human inputs to a minimum for what's going on, and to the point where you're like, hey, I'm going to go talk about it with the AI for half an hour. We're going to decide whether we're changing out, and this year we're going to do this crop instead of that crop. And once that decision's made, it's going to come back and say, sounds good, I've got a plan for it, check me on my plan, and then it carries it out.
Yeah, I don't disagree that all industries are going to use more technology and AI to a greater extent forever. I guess what I'm disagreeing on is this kind of abstract context that AI does everything. AI farm, AI run Walmart, AI run the military. Like that just seems like that seems abstract and doesn't make sense.
What John got, I thought John actually sort of illuminated what I was trying to get there. And that is, it's not like it just suddenly does it all, but at some point it's doing 99% of it or something. I mean, like it does more and more over time, and it gets more and more responsibility, and it gets better and better at making the decisions that should be made on what crops to grow and when, and how to treat them and how to take care of them. And it gets better. And then the next year you're like, hey, let's make it even better now. And the chips get better, and NVIDIA makes it better platform upon which the AI can make the decisions that eventually it makes. And it gets to be a larger part of the decision-making element of it all, to the point where eventually, okay, it's not all of it, but it's hard to tell what it's not doing.
Right. So to make it more believable, set aside farming for a second, take an industry where it's essentially already happened. I don't know what industry, like if you go and take, NASDAQ, and you go, how did that happen in, 1908, when these guys would go up and put chalk on a chalkboard and, talk to each other about this and that. And there's still people involved, but like there's, 99% of what's happening is totally automatic, in the system. Or take the Tesla creating the car. It's like there's people still involved, but you can already see where as more and more of those jobs are handled, you got a fully automated. Some factories are already very close to like fully automatic. My grandfather had a company that made paper bags,
raincoats.
What's that?
Trench coats.
No, he didn't. It is real. They made paper bags. They had machines that made paper bags, and like it was totally, it was, they originally made paper bags, then they made the machines that made the paper bags, et cetera, until there's no people involved. You're just kind of putting inputs in one end and getting this out the other. Why is farming different? I mean, it's very much down to the natural.
I think it might be semantics. I think Bryce had a problem with using the word all of it, and I don't think he disagrees that it just gets to be a bigger and bigger portion, and eventually it might be undifferentiated. Can you at least agree with that?
Me?
Yes.
I agree that all industries are going to use more technology and AI all the time. Yes, I agree with that. I don't know that AI in and of itself is going to be running entire systems of businesses. Like, I think that'd be the equivalent of telling an AI to run Walmart, and then the CEO goes home, and then the AI decides everything that Walmart should do all the time. I think that's, in 1,000
I sort of feel like that's,
Amazon.
I see an AI CEO running Walmart in 30 years.
That's called Amazon.
There's no way. As a shareholder of Walmart, I would never allow that to happen. There's like, it just destroys the company.
Well, it matters what kind of do you gradually gain in confidence about what this or that AI agent, can handle for doing different, like take the customer service part of it. Like somebody calls them up and it's like, hey, I have this or that problem. And it turns out that 99.9% of the stuff they call about, you can make a computer understand well. And not only that, you can use an AI voice that no one would know it was an AI. And we're like very close to having all of customer service taken over. So there's one chunk of it, inventory management, whatever is the next chunk there. But like as Amazon, it practically runs itself. It's people are there to, sort of keep it going and deal with bugs that come up or whatever. But if everybody went home for a day, basically Amazon keeps running. The program's there and it runs. So Walmart's only different because it's in the physical world.
I don't think that's true. I think Amazon would not work if people did not show up for a day.
I think Twitter works with
a lot of trucks
people
and
fired.
People, and they have like 200. We looked at Walmart has more employees in the U.S. military.
What was it, Bryce? 600,000 people or something?
Yeah,
2 million?
Amazon is not
2 million. What was the number? It was more than the U.S. military.
Yeah, I think
you're making my argument for me.
Almost 2 million employees, and the military is like 650,000 active duty, or something like that.
Yeah, you're making my argument for me. Look at the case of Twitter, right? He comes in and fires 75% of the employees, and whether you like how it runs or not, it runs, you know. And it's like, well, what were all these other people doing? You know, it's like there's a lot more people involved, and there needs to be.
The difference between Twitter and Walmart, obviously, is Walmart's selling physical goods for the most part.
Stocking shelves, driving trucks. Amazon has 1.6 million employees.
And Walmart 2.1 million.
Yeah.
And automatic and
I just my point is that humans always figure out something else productive to do. People aren't just going to sit on their laurels and do nothing.
I'm not disagreeing. I framed it wrong by using that as sort of the segue into this. The point that I find fascinating is taking it to the extreme and looking out 20 or 30 years and not the labor part of it. The labor part is something Bryce, I'm with you on this. I think human beings forever have been told, no, there won't be any jobs left because technology is killing this industry, and there's still jobs, and people figure out ways to produce and be a productive part of the society and be rewarded for that. But I do think it's fascinating to think about the fact that what we consider like high-end software engineering jobs today are being completely disrupted. And soon engineers who design chips will be completely disrupted. And soon guys who drive trucks will be completely disrupted. And soon guys who work at the construction lot will be completely disrupted. And it's not just the jobs themselves, it's the fact that the companies will become much more profitable and more efficient, and prosperity to the owners of the capital and the companies.
I was
thinking better off than ever before.
But like even Jensen Huang is not saying that. He's saying that AI is going to get really, really good. And he's like, I hope someday. They asked him this question. They're like, will you fire all your engineers? He's like, no, never. He's like, I hope we have 50,000 software engineers like we do now, or chip engineers. Yeah. And then in that 50 years from now, we'll have 50,000 engineers and 1 million AI agents that help them.
So I took it as a different question. When you said, like, will Walmart be all done by computers or whatever, I took it to mean, will today's Walmart be done by tomorrow's computers? And for that answer, I would still say, yeah, it could be, because you went and moved the goalpost. If you say, oh, there'll be more new things for them to do. Well, sure. And you can have people for that, you know, continually. That's the idea of what else, finding what's useful to do. But if you say, will it be capable of doing what today is done? Then you can say, well, that might be.
Right. But it will be, I think that's right. The human beings will still be figuring out ways to apply it all on a meta level to make the company more proficient, more effective, more profitable, more prosperous all the time using these tools.
Yeah.
And so I suppose there are startups right now, startup retailers that are going to compete with Walmart and Amazon that will be using AI more effectively, will be using robot technology more effectively. And somewhere 10 or 15 years, we'll be talking about the companies that used AI to completely disrupt, for example, retail shopping.
If there will be jobs for people still, which I think all three of us think there will be, will there be, though, a need for, even more than it's been talked about in the last 20 years, you know, constant retraining, like people upping their own kind of ability to think about things in new ways, to be creative, to, to kind of make use of what's there. Because we have to keep operating, on the shoulders of those AI giants, not kind of just going, fine, I flip hamburgers and I'm going to keep doing that. But more like, hey, computers took over this, that, the other, and then seeing what else fills the gaps, whether that's from an intelligence standpoint, a creativity standpoint, whether it's from a human to human contact, kind of thing that we notice that it's not capable of, that we have to fill the gap on.
Yeah, I think we all would agree that you never want to underestimate the power of individual humans to figure out ways to create prosperity and provide services to the world.
Well, that's on the side of the, entrepreneur, et cetera. What about at the side of the worker? Thinking from that viewpoint. And I say, like, well, people in general should be like, maybe you're not going to go to college. Maybe you're not going to, maybe you're going to have a robot and an android that you are partnered with, that you're going to use to continually learn and push yourself.
Yeah. I think they'll end up in a gray area between entrepreneur and otherwise.
Oh, yeah.
Yes, Bryce, please.
No, I wasn't saying anything. Just thinking.
So some of the news, we've all been impressed with Notebook LM from Google taking content and creating podcasts.
There's a new version.
What's that?
There's a new version of that now.
That's what I was about to say. So apparently they've updated it, and now you can actually tell them, like, set some parameters on how much of an expert the podcasters should be on the topic, how deep down the rabbit hole they will go on the topic. And just, again, every time I look at the Notebook LM, and and Bryce and I have used it quite a bit. Bryce, you didn't even try for your article today?
No, I didn't. I didn't think it would be a good one for it, but I could have.
So we've had hit or miss experience whether it truly creates a helpful value add podcast or if it's just some pointless content for the world. And we try not to send it out when we don't think it's actually valuable, or we don't send it out when it's hallucinating or too much or something. But I find it fascinating every time I think about it and use it, just how I did not see that application coming, and what an obvious way of using LLM technology it is to provide something of service to the world. And they're already on like the third or fourth version of this thing since you introduced this to us like 6 weeks ago, John. And so, I guess the analogy I would make would be like when iTunes came out, it didn't get it better 6 months later. It got better 18 months, 2 years, 3 years later. And so the Kurzweilian acceleration of the technology revolution continually accelerating is, you're seeing the proof in the pudding in the way they're iterating repeatedly with these new applications that use the current version of AI. And I also I'm always like, this is picturing some sort of archaic real networks radio player versus what we use with Spotify today, and how we don't realize just all the ways. Most of the stuff that we're looking at with AI right now is dial-up internet, 1997, and what it will be doing in another 2, 3, 5 years that's again where I'm finding it mind-boggling, just seeing what will Google LM be doing in 3 to 5 years. Will be making its own TV shows, competing with Fox News and MSNBC.
I think there's kind of like these vectors, if you will, but in a different sense, just meaning paths that we're seeing happen where, this one is about image generation. This one is about voice generation. This one about, kind of pulling up any answer to anything in the Wikipedia sense, or creating stuff. So like the LLM kind of end of it. But then over time, what we see is like these get better, of course. And then they mix and match in ways maybe we weren't thinking of. And if we stop and think, well, in what way, by the time video gets to this point, what might mix with that to, get us the next cool thing?
Yeah.
How do multimodal models work, John? Can you mix diffusion and transformers in the same model?
Yeah, that's right.
Walk through what that means, Bryce or John.
Let John do it.
No, let Bryce do it. He got it right.
I don't know how it works.
You asked the question and got it right, Bryce. Come on.
I don't know how they mix the two models together.
They train them simultaneously. So like if right now when you make a large language model, the English kind of part of it, the natural language part of it, you're continually providing these inputs. It's absorbing books and articles and things off the web and everything.
Yeah.
Kind of one by one, and now it's absorbing that and a relevant image at the same time into the same vectors. So they're one and the same. It's not like, because before what happened was it sort of they got created separately opposite each other, but with the same middle. And they you go in with this kind of English description and you come out with this kind of picture. But now they're made as one.
Interesting.
One model.
And the voice, like the advanced voice stuff that's coming out from Meta and OpenAI, is that trained in a similar fashion, or is it trained from actual human like conversations?
It is trained from human conversation, but
it is.
Yeah, and I mean, like, some of the things that it can do, and people sort of jailbreak it or kind of fake it into being able to do, is like everything. You have it say like, read me this business report, but do it like you're, being an announcer at a soccer match. It'll do every which, voices for doing things and stuff. It's amazing. But I don't know how they get the real time out of it, because they have, I think, incorporated that into the API now, so you can actually make stuff that uses it. It's not just like I'm using, OpenAI's thing that I talk to. It's like now you can go and develop your own thing that you talk to that's uses it.
It's pretty wild to play with. Like it feels like you're talking to a real person on the advanced. Like if you have, especially if you have it on your phone, you can like I do if I'm driving sometimes and I'm thinking and want to like research something, I'll just talk to it and it feels like you're just having a conversation.
Yeah, I've done where I'd have a like a brainstorming session with it, and I'm thinking these different things, and it says something, I key off it keys off of me, and at the end I say, could you summarize and make sense of, put that back, what's been figured out so far, and totally turns it into the most like understandable thing, more than I could have done.
And being able to interrupt someone is a fundamental part of human conversation.
It is. It's totally. It is something.
I'm way better at that than either one of you.
And now that you can interrupt ChatGPT, it's so much better because you're not sitting there listening to it drone on for 5 minutes when you just wanted that first sentence or two, in the response.
So I find the one thing that I can't like, if you think about like, oh, it's really good and sounds natural, is that it's not great at sensing time. Like I'll tell it, all right, just sit there quietly for a minute. I got to go do this or that. It'd be like, okay, all right, are we done now? It's like, no, just sit there. Just like, yeah.
Yeah, that's interesting.
So you made me think Wikipedia is doomed.
Well,
why go to Wikipedia? Why in 5 years would anybody go to a website called Wikipedia to read the summation instead of just interacting with a large language model that will teach you whatever the topic is you were going to look up on Wikipedia?
Because we're always going to need a place where you can rapidly put in disinformation.
You still need a place to input the information, right? I think John.
But I guess no. But if the large language model is learning off of all of internet, it's going to have better information than whatever the group of people who created the Wikipedia page for Cody Willard has on it.
Oh, wait. This is interesting, right? We're talking about that thing about these different paths and like when they intersect and stuff like that. So Wikipedia exists. These large language models, they know the stuff it knows, but you got to wait 6 months for them to get updated. They're getting better, like Perplexity. It's getting better at some. That's what the Wikipedia killer is, more like a Perplexity. But if you're wanting the ability to have people in general contributing, and then when they do, that becomes part of I'm forgetting the term,
knowledge base.
Yeah, I was going to say I think it's a German term or something, but the one, it means like the way that things are, that everybody understands the
Gestalt.
Yeah, they're like the Gestalt, or like the common understanding everyone has something. Like, so if you want that ability, and it's not just a language model, it's a language model and some reg kind of a thing, and the collaborative stuff like what Wikipedia offers, then it might be Wikipedia, think of it as a person, doesn't lose its job, but it goes and makes use of this stuff. So kind of the way that
why not just have a Wikipedia-based LLM?
Yeah, like or an LLM-based Wikipedia. Think of it the other way around. So like the you know who Khan, what's his name?
Khan Academy.
Khan Academy, right? They're doing huge like integration with. So it's not like something you don't throw away Khan Academy. You take Khan Academy, and it is so powered by LLM stuff that it makes it much more powerful, et cetera. So what if we have a Wikipedia, because the Wikipedia side of it is good at the collaboration, people, adding the new knowledge, and then, but it's,
So that's a good segue to actually the next thing I just wrote down was, Duolingo, or Bryce, is that the one that we looked at? I mean, this goes back a year ago with the language.
I thought it was talking about it. Yeah.
And the Duolingos of the world, like on a cursory level, you're like, well, they're doomed. Clearly, the ability for ChatGPT's current iteration to be able to interact with me and listen to me, try to speak Arabic and help me learn how to say at least a certain number of phrases so that I'm conversant in Arabic, versus going to Duolingo or any of the others existing platforms that try to teach you foreign language. The flip side is Duolingo, I'm sure, is already actively integrating AI into their systems and trying to make their systems better with AI. And because they've got the root base business and core knowledge of how to teach people that, maybe it'll be a more productive product, a better product than what ChatGPT can do.
They better, and if they don't, somebody else will. But ChatGPT by itself, and I've tried it for languages, it's amazing. I could sit there and say, I'm going to say stuff in English, you say stuff in French. Just only talk French to me, and I'll try some French mixed in, but you just keep it. Like, I've tried these kind of things, and it's really good, but it's also so unstructured that I'm having to kind of teach it how I want to move forward. And if somebody like Duolingo or somebody else comes along and says, I'm going to be the one to make use of that and do the right kind of thing with it.
Well, they already have. Like, you could literally unleash AI machine learning on the Duolingo platform and be like, hey, take this and use it as the way to teach people when they want to learn a new language. Bryce, your thoughts on this?
They are doing that. I mean, they partnered with OpenAI really quickly after ChatGPT came out. Because I think credit to the management, because they could see the writing on the wall.
Yeah, but I have the Duolingo advanced premium whatever that incorporates AI-ish stuff. We got it right before our trip to try it out, and you get on like this little phone call or something with the character, and it has a short conversation, and it can change up what it's going to say based on what you say, so forth. But it's fairly lame. And my concern would be, I think this opens up the opportunity for disruptors with somebody to take on Duolingo and that equivalent across many other industries.
Well, another one,
they're too tied down. They're too caught up in the stuff they already do. So it makes it very difficult.
John, have you heard of Chegg?
Yes.
So online learning platform again. And unlike Duolingo, I haven't looked at Chegg. I'm about to say this out loud, but I know that stock has just been absolutely demolished.
Yes.
Yeah. Whoa. That stock is down 99.9% from its high.
Yeah. It was a poster child for getting killed.
And meanwhile, Duolingo is at all-time highs. At one point, 10 years ago, 4 years ago, Chegg was worth more than Duolingo, and now Duolingo is worth 100 Cheggs.
Maybe Duolingo will continue to do it right, I feel there's risk there because they're so ingrained in what they already do. But they did put a ton into, basically habit forming, getting people to, hooked on continuing. That's the whole thing about those things is like, do people continue to use it? Do they continue on like they do the thing with the streaks? That has nothing to do with AI. But it's like if you can get people to do it, and if you stay good at doing that, then you stay in the lead with regard to that. But somebody else, like, what do you think about Adobe? They thought they were going to get killed, but they just acquired stuff and incorporated stuff, and they're making their own tools like much better with the AI.
I personally have a hard time getting behind Adobe, especially at the valuation. I think there's risk to Adobe.
I hate their whole pricing model from a user side of things, but
I hate the way that anytime you put an Adobe product on your computer, it like every time you upload, you turn it on, they got some Adobe prompt. It's always trying. Oh, it's the worst.
It's like the Windows machine.
Norton.
Like, I think, John, a big part of this that we haven't really talked about that much is the data to train the AI. And like in Duolingo's case, they don't have much of an advantage there because that data is open source. Anybody can access the French language or Spanish language via text, right? And train an AI model to understand it.
But the UI,
I think so. Just as on the opposite end of the spectrum, we've talked about Autodesk. It's the central CAD software which all engineers use to design buildings and bridges and everything. Nobody else has that data. Like that is all behind a walled system, which Autodesk maintains in its cloud.
I think a question to ask.
Those are two like opposite in terms of data on the data spectrum. Those are the two extremes almost.
I think a question to ask is, how much did they understand their customers, and are they good at delivering to? That's like we said about Apple. They know their customers. The way they approached AI was very based on look, we're not going to try to do everything, but we know who our customers are, and they care about, privacy. They care about ease of use, and there's certain things they hit on, and then that's what they go and care about. Duolingo, they're like, it matters that people keep using it. So it's all about streaks. It matters that it's super easy when you first get in. These are things that don't have to do with the AI. So if they get it right, do they use it to stay in the lead? And it is the opposite. Autodesk is the opposite end of the spectrum.
That's a good point, Bryce. Autodesk, as we've talked about, right? Like the fact that they have the rights to use every model that's ever been built on it versus Duolingo. How you said that, it's funny. The French language is truly open source. Closed source. Nobody's allowed to use these words outside of French and authorized licensees.
What's funny is the French government controls the French language.
That's right. You're actually not allowed to create new French words like we can in the U.S.
Yeah.
Are you serious?
About that?
Yes.
That's funny.
They one of their assets.
Webster, like we've privatized the English language in the U.S. at least, and Webster can add a new word to the dictionary every once in a while.
Right.
In French, there's actually a government-appointed board that decides what words, if any, get added or subtracted from the language.
And I guess it's going to prove itself out, and I think that English will win in the open market when it comes to
imagine
language.
Central control being a bad thing. Always.
Hey, wait! Before we go, I hit on this thing I was talking about. If I can keep my voice, I don't know what's going on. So what I was finding out is that the question of how do we tell what like intelligence is, and the discussion of these various researchers working on this, they're like, the degree to which you can generalize and very broadly generalize off of the knowledge that you have is a key thing. And what it means to generalize is to get outside the normal kind of distribution off the data that you learned from. Your answer doesn't come from something that's occurred before. It can be way off from what's occurred before, but still be like an answer. And the important thing here, if you think of like we're saying with data, today it matters totally whether you own the data because the model is built on the data. But the models that we have running so far are only so intelligent. They seem like making up new stuff, but they're making it up out of existing stuff, and they can't just kind of make it from scratch. So like an example is there's this test that looks like an IQ test where it'll show some shapes, almost like a this is to that as this is to that. And it'll go like, here's the before and the after. Here's another example. Here's a before and an after. And you go, here's a before. What's the after? And there's no like knowledge out there that will go help with this. It's like you got to look at it and try some things and go, oh, well, if it were filling it in like that or rotating it or whatever, it's like IQ. Then you go, oh, so that's intelligence, where it isn't basing it on a bunch of like data that was filled into it, but it's that ability to kind of manipulate from where it is now, try out things, be creative. And so they have rigorous representations of what this actually means. And they're starting to write code that helps for the computer to be intelligent in this way. And if you take that and combine it onto the LLM stuff, that's where we'll get to the AGI is their argument.
I wanted to say that it's got to be machine learned, but I think it's wrong. I think it will be what you said. There'll be human beings actually helping code stuff all the time along the way.
There's a notion of abstraction where you say like, what have I got to work with? I've got these couple of functions or subroutines or procedures or steps or something. And you go, oh, well, I want to get to, I have one of them goes 1 + 1 and it gives me 2. Oh, well, I want a version of that that makes 3. Oh, that'll be 1 + 1 + 1. And how about, 19? That's 1 + 1 + 1 + 1. Like, oh, seems like we ought to do some chunking, some abstraction and go like, I'm going to support doing 1 plus some bigger number and not have to go through 17 steps. And you're building up your toolbox of things to work with by taking the ones you already had and abstracting them out and going, there's a simpler way to do that. There's a simpler way to do that. And you keep simplifying, abstracting, generalizing, and that's learning because it's making it available to itself the stuff that it needs to go.
So Bryce wrote an article for Trading with Cody today that was quite interesting, and it applies to this. And then I'll let you guys have the last words, and we'll wrap this sucker up today. He talked about how we should patience is key in investing, because that's what we're writing about always. But he talked about how it's what made him think about it was in golf. You got to be patient when you're doing in your backswing, and then when he ropes, team ropes and rodeo, you got to be patient when you're roping. And that's sort of like what you're talking about here. It's like taking disparate concepts and being like, there are analogies here. And that's intelligence. Bryce, last words, thoughts? I gave you a nice compliment to finish it up.
Very nice. Thank you. What actually made me think of it was playing guitar was the first thing.
Oh, that's right. That's right. You said that.
Yeah. It's just getting timing perfect, takes patience, and you have to let the chord ring out just the right amount of time before you switch to the next one, So it's just amazing how much development we see in AI like every week. The fact that we can do one of these calls every week and have like a lot of news to talk about is a testament to the development happening in the AI revolution, right? If we did one of these on the farming revolution, we may not have enough content to fill up an hour every week. That might be a month.
Maybe once a year.
Yeah. Or I could come up with a month of, give me a month. I could give you some farming stuff to talk. Maybe
for AI and farming, we could keep going every week because we figure out how to apply stuff.
Can I just say on the note about the music thing, John, before you say your last words, I always find it interesting when I listen to great rock and roll, and I know how high on heroin the performers were when they made that song.
Yeah.
And I'm like, how are they I have a hard time just staying on beat, completely sober, playing guitar with a drummer. And they're out there I guess when you did that, I played so much basketball growing up, I can do it in my sleep. Maybe that's what they lived with their guitar. And so it comes natural to them, I guess. I don't know. I've always made that.
You say live, but actually, Kurt Cobain. No, I mean, they don't.
Janis Joplin,
That's the
Jimi
difference. Is
Hendrix.
That's the difference. Is you're alive.
Yeah. All right, John. Last words besides that.
My last word besides that is I thought it was quite humorous that Cody started talking about patience when a few minutes ago he was saying, but the AI is going to do it all in 30 years. What are we going to do? What are we going to do about that? So there's like,
I want one further word. I was looking at my text messages with Cody today. I was looking for something specific.
That's what it was. I couldn't remember what I wanted to bring up on the call.
Yeah,
Can you read it?
You probably can't read it, but it's from December.
Oh, I can hear it. Let me share. I'll share my screen, Bryce.
Okay. It was,
I'm
it was
so
right before I
glad
was
you
fixing to
remember.
come work for Cody at the hedge fund. This was 2 years
Is this
ago.
going to show Cody's predictive abilities?
Well, crap. It's not letting me do
it's
it.
in the text.
I know, but it won't let me share the text messages. Let's see if it'll let me share what I just opened there. No. If I copy, Control A, Control C, go to Google Mail and hit Compose. All right, here you go. I wanted the actual image, but I guess you sent.
I sent a screenshot of the text.
All right, here we go. Come on. What just happened? Oh.
This is bad TV, as you would tell us, Cody.
It is. This is bad TV right here.
We always say, don't worry, we'll cut this part out. And then we never do.
Anyway, here, it's not the screenshot, but it is the words. So, oh,
let's read your whole mail on forever permanently on YouTube. That's good.
Perfect. All right, here we go. Cody, this is from Bryce. He says, this is December 12th, 2022, before he's even working with me. Bryce, you read your parts. I'll read my parts.
Is ChatGPT a huge deal or not? People saying it takes down Google.
And I said, have you not read anything I've written in the last 2 weeks? And he writes,
obviously not.
And I said, I've written every article for 2 weeks about and with ChatGPT.
I said, okay, I'll read them.
And I said, please do. It will blow your mind when I've already done with it. And then he comes back. No, that's it. Me too. Also, I'm like, I spent an hour playing with ChatGPT already. I had it write a real estate contract for me in one of the articles. It did it as well as any attorney can. And Bryce says,
yeah, that's probably true.
And then I said, read some of my articles. I'd love to have your thoughts or, opinion on it. Discussions.
Yeah, I like that. Have you not read anything?
Cody was always mad when I was working in my law firm. He'd call me and want to talk stocks, and I'd be like, "What about this?" He's like, "I wrote about that yesterday." I'm like, "Well, I didn't have time to read all your emails. I'm trying to."
He's like, "I have a job, dude." Now I pay him. I pay him to read my emails.
Yeah, you see, you had to go there. It's like you have a job. Don't worry, I'll take care of that.
Yeah, you got to read everything I write now. All right, Bryce, was that it? Or John, was that everybody's last words?
But it turned out ChatGPT did turn out to be a big deal.
I'd say so.
Absolutely. What else did you say today, Bryce? You're like, we could have bought any tech stock that day I texted you.
Yeah, the market was also bottoming right then. The irony of the ChatGPT moment was it came in the bottom of this horrific bear market, in 2022. And
it put in, and it fundamentally put in the bottom because the spending, not only did it bring out animal spirits for investors, but the spending, the actual fundamentals for NVIDIA and on down the line improved dramatically when these offerings came along, when the ability for Llama, ChatGPT, Gemini, Anthropic to exist came along. It brought out spending, it brought out animal spirits, it brought evaluation increases, multiple expansions, etc. Yes, John, last word, and then I'm hanging up.
Are there companies that are kind of actually numerically saying how much they saved in the past, whatever, from incorporating AI?
I don't think so.
One of the best examples I've seen is Walmart in their last quarterly report said that they had some pricing data that they do that they have to do like so often, like maybe when they set all the prices for all the products, that they were able to use AI for that, and it replaced like 1,000 or 50,000 man hours or something like that, right?
Yeah, that's old school AI.
Yeah,
it's
But
not
that was
LLM.
last quarter.
Yeah,
That they
yes,
said
but it's not LLM stuff. It's regular machine learning.
Yeah.
so that's just it, John. Everybody's waiting for someone for corporations to come out and tell everyone just how beneficial AI is to their top line and or bottom line.
I thought there were layoffs from a bunch of companies that people equated to, like, I'm not going to need that department anymore, kind of thing.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know, and I've seen much of that.
Google has fired a lot of people, but so is all of tech.
Yeah, Tesla's fired a lot of people, but I'm not sure it had anything to do with AI.
No.
Maybe we should do. Maybe they should do a notebook LM about Google layoffs. Hey, Google's listening.
Yeah.
Lost a lot of people. Yeah, they sure have.
Totally tasteless, John.
Too soon.
All right, everybody. Peace and love. We'll see you next Monday. Same bat time, same bat channel. The AI revolution. Onward, upward.
All right. See you guys.
Thanks, John. Thanks, Bryce.